All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Jo Ellis Effect. We are officially entering phase 3 of Operation Conservative Psyop, also known as Please Joe Rogan Pick Me, Pretty Please. Phase 1, if you don't remember, it was surviving the false accusations of the helicopter crash, and then it was fighting back. So learning stand up. Phase 2 was going down to Austin, Texas the first time, signing up for Kill Tony. And I'm sorry, this is still part of phase 1, signing up for Kill Tony and getting, by some miracle, pulled out of the bucket. Phase 2 was actually just wrapped up recently. It was 3 weeks in Austin, Texas. And that was a lot of fun. I got on the Mothership open mic. And so that went really well. And I've discussed this in the previous episodes. Phase 3 is packing up my life and driving all the way to Austin for 3 months, a whole quarter of a year. So I got an Airbnb for 3 months and I cannot wait to get down there. I'm leaving on November 1st. And so I'll be down there until the end of January. So it's exciting times. So that is going to be phase 3. Hopefully, Rogan will mistake me for someone interesting enough to be put on his podcast. We'll see. Tonight, we're talking about some wild stuff. We've got a new report claiming trans identity is in decline. Apparently, gender is like crypto. Everyone bought in 2023, and 2025, it's a bear market. Trump's Navy is blowing up suspected drug boats and then letting the survivors go home, which legally speaking is kind of like saying, we caught you, but I guess we can't actually convict you. Also this week, the Ninth Circuit, the Ninth Circle of Hell. The Ninth Circuit, thank God, had a hearing on the trans military ban, a case which will decide whether someone like me can serve in the future. It is still being contested in the courts, and it's currently at the Ninth Circuit. And of course, some other drama that happened to me this week. Nancy Mace had a meltdown on Sirius XM where she hung up on the host, Michael Smerconish, after he was defending a trans veteran. Spoiler, that veteran was me. He brought my name up, and she flipped a switch and went full turf on his program. And so we're covering all of that, light, easy stuff. Alrighty. So if you don't remember, Operation Conservative Psyop is my satirical way of saying that I'm going to infiltrate the Rogan sphere of Austin, Texas, bringing not only truth but also some punchlines, giving them a representation of a trans person. Let's see here. What else do I want to cover? I think that's about it. I mean, strap in, grab your favorite beverage. I am actually being sponsored by Diet Mountain Dew. Not really. This is just what I'm drinking. Between that and some Percocets, because I had a small medical procedure last week, and so I'm a little high. So let's have some fun. I'm gonna scroll down. I've got some notes here. Sorry. Where did my notes go? Well, that was almost a solid intro. Let's see here. Oh, my notes are right here in front of me. I just can't seem to read. Just gonna copy these over so I can read them. All right, so the trans identity survey, if you all haven't noticed, and feel free if you're on YouTube to drop a comment anytime you want. I'll try to check periodically and read those. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do that. It really helps me out a lot. I'm not even at the 1,000 subscriber level yet to earn any kind of pennies or anything off of this. So the more people that subscribe, the more visibility I get, which is nice. Okay, so the trans identity survey. If y'all don't remember, let me just pull it up because it is kind of a whirlwind. Okay, so I'll start with, right, present, screen, yes. Brave tab, yes. I'll start with this here. Eric Kaufman posted October 14th. So that was last Tuesday. Pretty bold headline. Trans identification is in free fall among the young. And he shared a graph that says share of students not identifying as male or female between 2016 and 2025. It shows that it slowly climbed up and then rapidly climbed up, I guess exponentially in 2021 up until 2023, and then now it's starting to come down. My first criticism with that was that that doesn't seem to capture trans people at all. That captures non-binary people. And when I dug into the information and some of the other data that he was using from school survey data, it was only asking non-binary or male or female. It was not asking trans or trans woman or trans male or anything. So rightfully so, he got a lot of backlash for that, especially from me. I raised it up to Ben Ryan, who has a pretty large account and was able to reach out to Eric, and it looked like it was shaky data. Then Jean Twangy, she posted that it also had some issues and that she was digging for some other information. And over the weekend, let me just find it here. Over the weekend, she found some other data that shows trans identification for college age folks between 18 and 22 is on the decline. Which is, I mean, good, right? Like, I wouldn't want anyone to be trans if they're not really trans. Like, I hope that's a good thing, right? Like, I posted, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I pray that numbers declining is a good thing. Because some people mentioned that, oh, it could mean that people are scared to self-identify. It could be that the current political climate and rhetoric, keeps people in the closet. And I guess I could see that in some data gathering, but I don't know if I would see that as college survey admissions data, but maybe so. I don't know what it's like to be 18 to 22-year-old right now and answering those questions. But it is interesting. The Trump administration stopped capturing the data in their records after they came into power. So we're not going to get better data unless some other organization starts digging into this. So this might be the only good data we have right now is college admissions, because if the Trump administration is not tracking it anymore, I'm not sure how we'll see if it consistently declines, or if maybe we're in some sort of undulation because of the rhetoric. It's going to be tough. So we're going to have to rely on 18 to 22-year-olds, which is a scary proposition. I would be more interested in 30-year-olds identifying I would like to see that data trend over time, just because I think there's, there's people trying to figure it out, and I could see that there be some messy data where someone who's 18 uh, thinks that they're trans, identifies as trans, or identifies as non-binary, maybe doesn't pursue any medical transition, and then stops identifying that way. Like they realized it wasn't for them. Um, so I could see that happening. So I would rather see a more steady cohort group. And I feel like people in their 30s are less likely to switch back and forth and be unsure. Um, if we're trying to capture trans identity as a whole. Now, if we're trying to capture 18 to 22-year-olds, then yeah, you're going to need to use their data because that is a separate cohort, I think. Um, just because it's so tough to get gender affirming care under 18 right now, and they're not quite out on their own. Maybe they have overbearing parents, like they don't have an environment to come out. So I don't know how reliable 18 to 22-year-old data is. The only thing that we can say from this is that there are less college kids, 18 to 22, saying that they're trans or non-binary. Um, Last year the decline started in 2023. So about a year of decline because we have no more data after 2024. Well, really after the start of this year when the Trump administration came in. And then before that, it was at an all-time high, which is interesting, right? Because it also correlates with COVID. So I wonder, there's so many factors, right? So many things to consider. I don't know. What do y'all think? If you're on YouTube, post in the comments or in the chat. Are there any other things that could be causing this to go down? Other than, what most people want to say to this is that this is proof that it was a trend or a fad, and it's coming down because people are coming to their senses or something. If that's the case, great. Like I said, I don't want people thinking identifying as trans is a social club you want to be in for anything other than you are trans. In my mind, gender dysphoria is a medical condition that must be diagnosed, and transition is one of the many ways to treat it. What I don't want is people just saying they're trans without going through any kind of treatment, mental health, or proper diagnosis, and then getting swept up in informed consent models that might make them pick procedures or things that they would regret. Or worse, right? The predator loophole that everyone on Twitter tells us is a huge deal. All the TERFs, are really concerned with the predator loophole. And so if that's also the case, what I don't want is people using self-ID and the trans umbrella to give them any leeway of access to places that maybe they wouldn't have access to before. I want it to be safe. I want everyone to be safe and to get the care they need. And if that means that they're trans, then so be it. If it doesn't, then like, great. Like I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I don't know why anyone would think it's cool, like to be that, as a motivator to be that anyway. It's funny. I think of like, when you're young and there's kids and um, some siblings, like one sibling will have to get prescribed glasses, and the attention that sibling gets of going to like picking out the frames and getting fitted for glasses and all of that. You often see like other siblings who don't need glasses being jealous of that attention, and then oh, I think I need glasses too, right? Like, and so I don't know if that's a terrible example, but that's what I think of when I think of the idea of people seeing positive attention and, obviously you don't want to stigmatize trans identity, but we also don't want people just to be opting into it that don't need to be trans. It ruins it for everyone. It ruins the type of care that real trans people get. It ruins the type of access we get legally. It it really screws up the pool. It'd be like someone saying that they need glasses when they don't, and wearing glasses, and then ruining it for those who need glasses. I guess that's probably a terrible example, but that's what comes to mind. What else do we have here? So I had that. Um, so yeah, Jean Twenge. If you haven't read her stuff, um, she did a book. I think it was called iGen. And it looks like she's got another one. Great stuff. Really interesting author. I put her in the same like realm as like a Jonathan Haidt, um, and also like Cal Newport, who talks about like phones and productivity and how kids are being affected by growing up in these ever connected worlds where they're constantly chronically online and how what it does to their mental health. So I highly recommend you check out her stuff if you haven't. Um, yeah, I guess that's about all that for that one. What else do we got here? So declining numbers. Yeah, hopefully that's a good thing. The war on drugs or the war on random boats in the water. Let's talk about that. Uh, what's going on there? Uh, apparently there was another strike on a sub. I don't know if it was a sub or a boat. And there were survivors this time, which is funny because I don't think the Trump administration factored in the idea of survivors. And so they made an interesting move. They decided to let those people go back to the country. They repatriated them, which all factors point to they don't have, or the likelihood of them winning in court is low. So what evidence are they using to target these people in the water? We talked about this on a stream a couple times before about how they were in a legal gray area messing with this stuff. They were calling it oh god, what was it? Let me find it. Uh, hmm. Non-international armed conflict is what they were calling it. So um, they weren't really saying they're at war with a country, and they're also not calling them terrorists. Um, it's so strange. It is so strange. Um, it's it's a international law under the Geneva Conventions that they're trying to claim these things under, and you can't target civilians, and you're also supposed to treat wounded and prisoners humanely. And so it's messy, right? Because we talked about this last time. There's like three domestic laws that you could use to do this. The commander-in-chief has broad authority to use military force defending national security. And then, of course, post 9/11, we had the authorization for use of military force, which was passed so that way you could go after groups like Al Qaeda, but it doesn't strictly mention cartels. And then you have the War Powers Resolution, which requires presidents to notify Congress within 48 hours of using force and limit hostilities to 60 to 90 days. And then after that, they're supposed to get congressional approval, which hasn't happened in multiple administrations. So this is a very loose interpretation. And I think the reason why they repatriated those survivors is because if they didn't have evidence that would hold up in court, then they would be challenging their use of force. And it doesn't really fit under the AUMF because they're not a designated terrorist organization. I mean, it would be interesting to see that play out in court, right? To see if a judge would be like, yeah, sure, the commander-in-chief can just blow up whoever he wants in international waters. Like, it's nuts. This is, once again, an example where Congress has abdicated their responsibility and they're not doing their job. Another thing where it's tricky with cartels is they're not considered combatants. They're usually considered criminals. And international law would treat criminals through law enforcement, not like an enemy army. But declaring it a non-international armed conflict allows it to push it more towards wartime targets. But like I said, it's like a gray area. It's like they're saying they're not criminals. They're saying that they're combatants. But they don't belong to an organization that would be covered under the AUMF. And 4 people in a boat moving small amount of drugs around, or say it was a large amount, it's hard to say that that is a threat to your entire nation that you need to blow them out of the water. In my mind, why wouldn't you just intercept these boats and seize the drugs, and there you have your evidence, and then move on? Like, it seems like that would be an easy win. Or work with the countries that are receiving those boats and intercept them there at the ports. You know, like a normal law enforcement investigation would happen. Like, I just don't get we think that they have drugs. We think that they're bad people, so we're going to blow them out of the water. Oh, some survived. Well, you can let them go home. Because the other argument there is, okay, so it would be sticky to hold up in court. And the other argument is like, well, then they must not really be. Like, how weak is the intelligence on those people if it's not enough to take them to court? If it's not enough to actually try them in the US after you capture them? I don't know. I think we're in a really tough spot there, and I think we're violating some serious laws. But I don't think anyone really cares either. I'm sure the people in the drug boats care, or the boats. I think we saw one of the country, was it Colombia, or somebody was saying that there were fishermen that had distress beacons up and they had like malfunctioned and drifted. Gosh, if that's true, jeez. But I could also see, I guess, a country coming up with that story to have leverage over the US for something that they need. Like, they know the US doesn't have enough evidence, so they could make up a story that these were totally legit people and you killed our citizens, and how about you lift some sanctions or lift some tariffs, or, we'll hold this over you, right? I don't know. like I'm some sort of international relations expert. What else do we got? What else do we got? No, I don't want to move that. I want to move that. One day I'll get all these windows working here. All right. My trip to Austin. So I'm excited about that. I'm going down there for 3 months, and I am gonna be staying in an Airbnb. Let me just put this over here so that way I can not be looking away. So I'll be staying there for 3 months, and I am going to use that 3 months time to get as good as I can at stand-up comedy, to sign up for Kill Tony as many times as possible, and to keep pushing for that Rogan invite, you know? Like, um, is that weird? Is this like the most ridiculous thing ever to to think that this is gonna work? Like, I don't know. Y'all tell me. I think I know the answer. This is ridiculous. But you only live once, right? Um, I also wanted to address there's been some controversy around some comedians and the Rogan Austin scene lately. Um, you know, this all kind of started with Mark Maron and him criticizing the Austin scene about having, a trans joke and in every set. And I agree there is a lot of that. Um, but the idea that it's not a friendly environment and it's not welcoming to people, including trans people, is entirely false from my personal experience. Um, every time I've gone down there, not only the folks at the mothership and the folks at Kill Tony, including Tony Hinchcliffe himself, um, have been kind to me and generous and helped me build, who I am as a comedian. Helped me launch my comedy career, if you want to call it that. But even the surrounding scene, like the Creek in the Cave and the Sunset Strip and all the bars and everywhere around that there's open mics like Nar Bar and Shakespeare's and I haven't even been to all of them because there's so many. But even other hosts of other comedy shows there, like Rachel Wolfson, has reached out and been really kind to me and offered me spots. And um, Owen, who runs the Money Mic at Shakespeare's, has been super friendly. Another guy named Leo, who puts together showcases and stuff at Shakespeare's and other bars, um, have been just insanely kind. Um, there's more people. Their names are slipping my mind, but even folks that work at the mothership, like I go there so often, um, because I love going to see comedy shows that like most of the crew recognize me and know me by name. And like when I walk in, they're like, "Hey Joe, what's up?" Blah blah blah. Like, I talked to Genevieve, who works as a regular at the mothership, and she went well out of her way to like tell me how it kind of works and like how the open mic is basically like an audition process. And she kind of gave me some tips about like how to treat that mic as more of an audition and not so much as an actual open mic. um you know Everyone's been so incredibly kind and professional, um that it's hard to see. And maybe it's because I'm not a big name comic, but it's hard to see big name comics like um, Mark Maron and some of the other folks. And I'm not going to name them all because I'm not here for the drama necessarily, but if you just kind of Google it, you'll see there's been a bunch of back and forth, and like Andrew Schultz is like responded back, and Rogan responded back, and someone was on Santino's podcast and had said that they didn't have a good experience at the mothership. And hey, if I was a club comic and showed up at the mothership, maybe my experience would be different. Um, the one common thread I've noticed in kind of the complaints or the the beef or the friction is that Rogan's really protective of the green room. So much so that not everyone who's performing there can maybe even get in there. Um, and that's by design. So just going in there and knowing that, I think, and maybe they didn't know this, maybe that's why they rubbed people the wrong way or something happened. I don't know. Um, but that's what I would say is like just know that they're very protective of the green room and you're a guest. Like you're a guest there performing. And at my level, which is the bottom, um, everyone's been really kind to me. But that's maybe that's how I am. Like maybe it's because I present myself as a humble person who is open to learn, open to um, critique, and it's worked really well approaching everyone that way. It's just like, hey, like I'm a big fan of this place and I want to perform here one day. Like, what do I need to do? Um, Coming in with that approach has not had any issues. Everyone's really kind, all the way down to the people that seat you, to the people who search you and take your phones up, unlock your phones, the merch people, uh, all very kind. Now it is busy and it does, get sold out and it's packed, and that can make some people probably be more direct with you because they're basically doing crowd control. It's like, hey, you all need to go this way, you all need to go that way, get out of the hallway, like. But that's not personal. Um, so I don't know. I consistently see, and maybe it's just because it gets clicks, right? But I consistently see online, this comedian says, complains about Austin, or this comedian says it's not friendly to gay people or trans people or women. Um, I can't speak for biological women, but I can speak for a trans woman and who's also a veteran, and they've been nothing but friendly to me. And if anything, this is something people don't quite understand, I think, especially if you're not a brand new comic. Some of these comics that have been doing it for a while, I don't think realize Austin is the most affordable comedy scene right now. I can go to Austin for a week. That includes either an Airbnb or a hotel room, all my food, going out for drinks, maybe seeing a couple shows myself, Ubers, the flight there, all of that for a whole week. I can go. That is the same cost as if I went to New York City for a weekend. And I'm a train ride away from New York City. Granted, flying there is cheaper than the Amtrak, which doesn't make any sense to me. But I can go to Austin, which is further away and has a huge scene, and spend less money and get more time on microphones than I can in New York City or LA. So it is the best place for a new comic to get their reps in, get their time in, not break the bank. And it's a thriving scene. And it's like I said, it's very open. Everyone's super friendly. Just don't be an idiot. Like don't be a dick to people. And you'll filter out the people you like to be around and the people you don't, and that's just normal stuff. But I just I just don't think that these comics that are complaining about the scene understand how much of a gift it is to the struggling open micers that Austin exists, and it has a clear pathway. It has not only the Mothership's open mic, which is an audition, which one of the top comedy bookers in the world watches. So like you have, I think his name is Adam Egget. So he watches that open mic and looks for new talent. And if you do good, he will start booking you places immediately. Like you'll get a couple callbacks, is what I've been told, and then you'll start getting spots. And then say that's not working as fast enough as you need it. You also have Kill Tony every Monday night, which you could get a bucket pool, and it's open to anybody to sign up, and you get 60 seconds. And then it's up to you how you try to steer that interview and play it in your favor. And so I just don't know anywhere else I can go. Like I don't know where in New York City or LA where I could go and get that kind of um, clear fast track to starting a comedy career. Like in the other scenes, what are you waiting for, a Fallon invite? Like, because I don't even think like a Kimmel or a Fallon, I don't even think they get the viewership that Kill Tony does. And so I don't know. I don't quite understand it. There's just a lot of criticism, and Rogan seems very generous to the people he has on his podcast as far as, you know, up and coming comics. Anytime a comic has a new special that he knows, he invites them on and lets them promote it. And it's just like it's just weird that the same people that are on his show promoting their special are going to turn around and like talk shit about the mothership. And like I said, I'm more on the outside looking in because I've barely penetrated that sphere, but I haven't run into anything that they're talking about. But I'm also not coming in with any baggage or ego because I'm a nobody and I want to pay my dues. So from a new comics perspective, Austin is the cheapest and the best scene to be in right now. Now, if you just don't like that scene and you don't like Texas, fine. Go to New York, go to LA. Like, if you have hookups there and you can find spots there. I hear Chicago's got a scene too, and there's other places like Atlanta and other places you can go. But only one place has that kind of exposure. Um, so I don't know. That's been my experience. That you know, very friendly to trans people, very inclusive. In fact, the Kill Tony lineup of regulars and um, golden ticket winners, like very inclusive, all the way from disabled people to black, Hispanic, white, Jew, you name it. You just got to be funny. Like they just want you to be funny. If you go down there and you're funny, that's all that matters. And you'll see it too when you watch Kill Tony. You'll see people try to pander to the Austin crowd. And it might work a little bit, but it doesn't work overall. You can tell. Um, because I saw some bucket pulls that just like rattled off like every right wing buzzword you could think of. And like by the end of it, they were practically booing him. So it's not like you just need to go down there and say something anti-trans and, talk about, illegal immigrants and you'll just be famous. Like, it's not that easy. If it was, everyone would be doing it. Think about it. You got to be good. And just because they take up your phones when you're performing in the militia, that's not because they're just doing a bunch of, slurs. It's because it protects the comics material. So, for example, if I was performing at the mothership and I was trying to build an hour so that way I could eventually record a special, and I go in there and I do 15 minutes, and someone's in there with a phone and records 15 minutes of fairly new jokes that I plan to put in a special but haven't been polished yet. They haven't been worked out. Maybe some of them don't even work. Someone records that, posts it online. It ruins it. It burns your material. So taking up the phones not only protects the comedian's material, it also, they do it at the cellar too. So the whole people saying they take up their phones that way they can say be racist, they take up your phones at the cellar too. When I was in New York, they took them up. it also is good for the audience that you take up their phones because they're always on, like, people are always on their phones and they get a moment to just not have it be a distraction. They can look at the comedian, they can talk to the person next to them, and they can actually bond. And when you have that energy of people in a room, undistracted, bonding with live comedy being performed, it is night and day. Like there's just such an energy in that room. And the minute you let cell phones in there, that's gone. And someone records a set and they take it out of context, and then that comedian's getting, crucified online because of a bad joke, a joke that they probably knew was bad because they hadn't figured it out yet and they were testing it. I don't know. I just don't see how professional comedians can criticize that process because I would think they would understand the value of that. Um, but, I'm not at their level. So maybe when I'm at their level, I'll be sitting here complaining about the same things. But until then, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to, for 3 months, I found a synagogue down there that I'm going to go to as well, so I can keep my Jewish practices up, which is nice. Um, my rabbi here gave me a recommendation for one that's actually only a few miles from my Airbnb, which is perfect. Um, so yeah, that's gonna be a good time. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm trying to think what else I need to talk about that happened. Oh, the Ninth Circuit of Hell. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals uh, heard the trans military ban arguments. The case is Shilling versus Trump. They haven't issued like any kind of judgment yet. So all we did, let's listen to the arguments this week. I did like that they intentionally asked the Trump DOJ lawyer if there was any evidence that, because in the memo and the policy it says trans people are um, not consistent. I forget the wording, but basically not consistent with an honest, truthful lifestyle or whatever. And the judge asked for each one of those descriptions. Do you have any evidence that the people you're kicking out are not truthful? Do you have any evidence that they lack integrity? And it kind of went down the list of all the things, and it felt really good to have that on the record, that all that verbiage, which is just straight up animus in the policy about trans people, um, the DOJ couldn't back up any of it, which taints the case a little bit because the lawyer was arguing that, well, it doesn't really matter, that language, because we're basing it on a medical condition. And that makes it interesting because the president's executive order said, kick all trans people out of the military. I need you to go make a policy to do this. And then the policy says we're going to get rid of people with gender dysphoria or who've had symptoms of gender dysphoria or a history of. And so you could make the argument that regardless of it being based on a medical condition, the fact that the policy was made specifically at the president's request with the goal of getting rid of all trans people makes it more of a class argument than a um, military deference to being able to say which medical conditions are disqualifying, because that policy wouldn't have existed if the president hadn't say, find me a way to get rid of all the trans people. And then Secretary of Defense said, okay, well, here's a policy that targets gender dysphoria. And every trans person serving in the military has gender dysphoria. So if so facto, we got them. So that happened. Another thing happened. Nancy Mace Oh, she called in to she was on Michael Smerconish program, and she had a nice conversation with Michael, very open and honest about different things that she's talking about for her campaign and issues. They were also on Bill Maher recently together. And so he had invited her on and she took him up on it. At the end of it, he brought up the trans military ban and he said, I want you to know about my friend Joe, me, who is being kicked out of the military. And then at the end of his statement about me after 16 years and all this stuff, my deployments, at the end of it, he revealed that I was being kicked out because I was trans. And it was like a switch flipped on her and it went from this cordial um diplomatic person to turf mode. And it was so wild to see it flip like that and to see someone get so triggered who is running for governor that that's how they react to a simple question of, hey, this person served for 16 years and it feels like they're getting a raw deal. Like, isn't there something we could do for people like Joe? Didn't say anything about me getting access to bathrooms. Didn't say anything about me calling myself a woman. It didn't like he didn't say anything. He just focused on the military service and the fact of being kicked out just because I'm trans. And she went straight into, I'm not going to let someone take the place of women who have been fighting for years and all, like, which none of that applies to me being in the military. It has nothing to do with taking a woman's spot. Um, and then she brought up that there's not been a woman president, which I didn't quite understand it. Um, I don't know. Maybe I can play it. Let's see. Let me see here if I can play this. Mm. Okay.
I'm sensitive to your time. There's one more subject that I need to ask of Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Jo Ellis is a name that I'd love you to be familiar with. Jo Ellis was the editor of my newsletter. I have a daily newsletter. It is my passion project. Jo's a wonderful person who for 16 years has served in the Virginia National Guard, helicopter pilot, Black Hawk helicopter pilot, machine gunner, Iraq service. Recently, like many others, drummed out of the military because Jo has transitioned. And I know Jo to be such a patriot who has invested all that time on behalf of, now I will say, her government. Why shouldn't she be able to continue to serve?
He is not a she. I'm gonna tell you right now, Michael. I'm a woman. I have cleared many hurdles over the 47 years of my life, and I'm not gonna sit here and allow some man to be called a woman when he is not. Men cannot become women. That is not a thing physiologically. That is not biology. That is not science.
I just don't understand what any of that has to do with military service. Like she went straight into turf talking points. And I'm not sure if y'all can hear that, so I'm not going to sit here and play the whole thing. But the article has it here. Raw Story picked it up. But she also posted it on her own Twitter, which is quite funny. Let's see if I can find it here. Because I also posted it. Yeah, here it is. Michael posted it, and then she posted it. And yeah, if y'all want to listen to it, it's right there. But she basically went back and forth and wouldn't talk about the military aspect at all. Just kept talking about how because I'm saying I'm trans, therefore I'm not I'm not deserving of I don't know, because she never addressed the question. She just went into all this anti-trans stuff, which she's welcome to have those beliefs. Like, that's fine. But she didn't address trans military. Like, take all that out. Say I use male bathrooms. Say I don't call myself a she. Like, take all that out. why can't I serve? Or why can't I keep my benefits? Why can't I keep my why can't I just take away the retirement I've earned up until this point, 16 years, when I'm 2 years shy of early retirement? Like, it's just so weird. She just quickly went into turf mode. So that was interesting. Something to look into. I don't know. It's just wild. If you see, I'm an idealist. I would like to have a conversation with Nancy Mace if I could actually talk to her. If we could have an actual discussion, not for me to convince her of anything, but just to hear her out and she could hear me out. But she wasn't open to that, even with Michael. Like, as soon as he said trans, it's just case closed. Like, there is no discussion on this topic other than you're wrong. And so it makes me concerned because she just not long after that, she posted something about being such a friend to veterans and all this great stuff about how she supports veterans. And it's like, well, you wouldn't even talk to a veteran. You wouldn't even talk about a veteran without just going into anti-trans rhetoric. You wouldn't have a open and honest discussion. But yeah, if there was a chance that I could talk to her, I would probably agree with her on some points about her concerns about safety in bathrooms and her concerns about taking women's places. And I would love to discuss that. We could probably come to some compromises on some of that stuff that it's a win-win. But she's not interested in that at all. I happened to be listening to the program when that happened. And so I messaged Michael after she hung up. I said, thank you for, bringing up my story and stuff. I really appreciate you trying to have a conversation with her about it. And he replied, actually his producer TC replied back. She's like, call this number if you want to chat. And so I called in and before the show ended Friday, actually spoke for a couple minutes and basically said what I'm saying now. Like, that's how she is. Like, she just completely goes off the rails when it comes to trans stuff. She doesn't want to have a discussion. I would be open to having a discussion. And in fact, my conservative background and my upbringing, we would have a lot in common, except that one little detail that I call myself trans. It's the least interesting thing, but everyone's making it the only thing. I tried to talk to, what was her name? She goes by the handle Preda6. Amy Ham. I think she's a Canadian nurse or something. Same thing. I commented on something she had said about gender affirming care for children, and she was like, oh, something about negativity about the procedures and how they shouldn't be allowed to happen. And I said, well, except for she's something about like negative outcomes or only negative outcomes. I said, yeah, except for all the positive ones. Like, there are positive pediatric gender affirming care cases. Even if you say there's just one, there's still not none. And she replied back quickly saying, well, it doesn't matter because consent can never be obtained. And I got into a fun hypothetical with her because I was like, well, in that case, you would be against circumcision too, right? And like, what medical procedures could be done if you have to have consent? And she quickly flipped out too. She was following me, which was weird. She unfollowed me and then blocked me after sharing and quote posting me about how I was basically mansplaining to her and all this different stuff, and just like went off the rails. And like, I don't get it. Like, Amy and Nancy have there's a potential that they could win me closer to their side on some of their arguments. That's what they are missing here. is that I am open-minded enough to where you could make a good argument where I could step closer towards you on your concerns, and you're not even taking the opportunity. You're just shutting it down, which makes you look ignorant. I don't know. I guess they're just not used to people wanting to meet in the middle and be pragmatic, because the way they talk is as if there is nothing to be won from talking to someone who's trans, which is sad. Which is sad. So, Amy Ham, Nancy Mace, who else can I trigger in the next few days? Because I'm on a roll. I am on a roll. So, tonight we talked about trans identity appears to be in decline, which hopefully is a good thing. The government is on tricky legal grounds blowing drug boats out of the water, especially when they won't capture and then take to court the survivors. They just send them back to their country. Phase 3 of Operation Conservative Psyop is underway. I am leaving in 2 weeks, so November 1st, I'll be going down there and playing. I should just get like a sign and wave it, like, pick me, Rogan. Like, I swear I'm getting desperate here. But that's the whole point. I think if I were to get on, I was actually, the Observer reached out again and recorded a podcast interview with me. And they were asking about this, like, what is my ultimate goal with all of this going down to Austin stuff? I think I'll keep pursuing stand-up comedy. I don't necessarily need to go to Austin for it all the time. I'm mainly going to Austin to hopefully get noticed, to get more Kill Tony appearances, so that way I can get a spot on Rogan. Because I won't consider my mission of advocacy with stand-up comedy complete until I tell my story to Rogan's audience. Because once again, I'm not trying to enrich myself. This has nothing to do with money. It's just that his audience is the biggest of the pool of people that haven't heard a story like mine. And just like with Kill Tony and every appearance I've made, I've won hearts and minds. So if I were to get my story out to his audience, I would walk away from there feeling success. Like, I did it. I did what I set out to do. You know, at the end of May, I set out to do stand-up comedy to hopefully get in front of Rogan's audience. And so that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm also hunting for a literary agent. I'm trying to put together everything that's happened since January into like a narrative story or like a memoir type thing. So maybe I'll hear back. I reached out to some folks through CAA. It'd be nice if I can maybe write up, because if I could get a little book published, maybe that'll help get me on the circuit and reach more people. I would probably donate everything but whatever my cost is for that kind of stuff, because like I said, I've got a job. I'm only doing this for advocacy and because it's a hell of a lot of fun. Otherwise, like, I could be enjoying my free time playing some of my video games that are back there, or making music. I've got drums in here. I've got a keyboard. I've got like 7 guitars over there. I got plenty of hobbies. I got my cars to race. I got my skateboard ramp actually below me in the garage. It's a half pipe, or a mini ramp, 3x8 mini ramp. I got plenty of things to do. I've put a lot of that on hold, even at the detriment of my health at times. And I've spent pretty much all of my savings that I had accumulated over the last couple of years. I think close to 40 grand on pursuing this goal of getting noticed, getting on Rogan. So none of this is for money. This is purely for the idea of advocating and speaking for those that can't speak for themselves. You know, success is the best revenge for everything that's happened to me between the military and the crash rumor, which that case is still ongoing. So, you know, in a year or so, maybe that'll pan out to a win. That would be great. Because then I would have won holding someone accountable for defamation. But it's still ongoing. There hasn't been any updates. So defamation cases take forever. So until then, I'm just going to keep hitting the rounds, keep telling my story through comedy, keep trying to improve my sets. That way, if opportunities come up, I'm ready for them. And hopefully get a Rogan invite. If not, 3 months in Austin. What is that? 12 Kill Tony attempts. So there's a good chance in the next 3 months I'll actually get pulled. Out of the 6 attempts I've made, I've only been pulled once. So hopefully, we'll see. Thank you all for joining. This has been a long ramble. Percocet and Diet Mountain Dew induced. So thank you all for joining. And next week, hopefully I'll be a little bit more healed up and level-headed. I do have a gig tomorrow in Richmond, if anyone's around. It's at the Gold Lion in Manchester. I'll be performing 5 minutes there. It's a fundraiser for a health clinic. So that's exciting, you know? Once again, it's a good cause. And then I'll have another 5 minutes set at that same place on Saturday. It's a guest spot. They needed someone to work the door, and they said, hey, we'll give you 5 minutes. And, you know, while I'm in town, I just like to be a part of the community and help out. So I'll be doing another 5 minutes. Trying to write maybe one new joke to do at both of those sets, just because I'm kind of tired of saying the same jokes over and over. But that's me. Y'all have a good one. Bye.